Welcome to RRMC's presentation of Window on Wellness. I am Executive Chef Jacki Hesse, and today we're going to be making a great, healthy version of chicken pot pie right after this.
Welcome to Rutland Regional Medical Center. We are Vermont's largest community hospital with 37 specialty clinics. Healthcare organizations have always fixed people once they're broken, but at Rutland Regional Medical Center, we do more. We provide nutrition counseling, weight loss help, smoking cessation classes, all the things that help the community and individuals stay healthy. And we do it all with this promise: to listen, to respect, and to care, always.
So today I'm going to be welcoming my guest, Jacki Becker, who is the nurse practitioner and director of employee wellness at RRMC. She keeps us all healthy, and she will be back with me today. She was my first guest when we first started doing this show almost a year ago.
That's
now.
Right.
It's the Jacki Show, Part 2. Jacki Becker, thank you so much for coming back.
Thanks for inviting me back.
I appreciate you coming back to cook with us today. So we're going to be making a chicken pot pie, kind of a healthier version with some kind of non-traditional vegetables for a chicken pot pie. Oh, I always do that, wrong one. So we're going to just get our pan warming up over kind of medium heat so we can get our chicken going.
Okay.
For you today, I have 2 medium carrots. If you would peel those and start a dice on those. I'm going to start with our chicken. Get the pan warm. So I've got 1.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breast that I'm going to dice into kind of some small bite-sized cubes here. It's about 1.5 pounds. And we'll trim off kind of any extra fat that we see along the way.
I love chicken pot pie, so I'm excited to learn how to make this a healthy version.
It lightens it up a little bit with, there's no potatoes. I think, in a traditional pot pie you see a lot of potato. Okay. So we lighten it up a little bit there. We've added asparagus. We're going to have some frozen peas, those carrots that you have over there, as well as leeks. So traditionally you see a lot of, you see onion in chicken pot pie, right?
Okay.
We're going to use leeks, which have a really nice light onion flavor, but just kind of a little bit of an update, I feel like, to a classic dish. So I'm just going to keep on getting my chicken going here.
So I know you're doing a lot of changes at the hospital, working on...
We are. You and I, well, between our employee, our wellness committee, we have some kind of changes that we're working on, kind of in conjunction with employee wellness. Kind of with the goal in this next year to kind of help our staff and our visitors make healthier choices when they're coming into the hospital.
So that's really consistent. The CDC talks about making the healthy choice the easy choice.
Right.
And I know some of the work we're doing, I know you have some signage so people can make decisions.
Yeah, we have this great marketing, worked on this great green apple logo that kind of helps anyone coming in looking for a snack or a meal make a healthier choice. So that little sticker logo that they can look for
Nice.
Kind of helps people right away see what a better choice might be.
Catch the eye. Yeah.
So I'm just adding about a tablespoon, maybe-ish. It's about a tablespoon. It's going to do it of olive oil. Let me get what I have in there so my pan doesn't get too hot.
I noticed too you had the nutrition information on your signs above the grill now, so that's another...
Yeah, that is another change we made. We got some great new grill signage with a lot of the nutritional information, so that's another kind of initiative and kind of goal that we're working towards, is getting more nutritional information, to your point, so that people can be informed and make that choice a little bit easier. So I'm gonna wash my hands really quick and switch out all of my chicken equipment so that we don't cross-contaminate.
Yeah, the concept of food as medicine and food keeping people healthier, that's really growing, and people are becoming so much more aware of the lifestyle approaches they can take to be healthy.
So with this, we're just looking to get the chicken browned and cooked most of the way through. I was thinking today too, you could probably make this easily a vegetarian version. You could easily do a bunch of mushrooms in place of the chicken.
Ooh.
And kind of add more veggies to it.
That's a great idea.
Chicken's a great protein here though. It's lean. We use the boneless, skinless chicken, the white meat.
Sometimes I'll use tempeh cut up like that, so I wonder if that
That's a
would
great
work.
idea. Yeah, there's some really great meat substitutes out there. Tempeh is a really great choice. Absolutely. Let that kind of simmer a little bit here. I don't have my heat on too high. So I'm going to let that kind of work and hang out for a minute. You've got the carrots ready, which is great. I'm going to get the leeks ready to go so that we can move on. So do you ever cook with leeks?
I don't. I shall now.
They're kind of I feel like an underappreciated vegetable. They can certainly be a bit of a process to get clean. You can see these are pretty sandy. They kind of come in and they're grown in a sandy soil. We don't use a whole lot of the leek. Most of it actually we're not going to use. The best part of the leek is really the white to kind of just the top of the light green. So these are actually a little bit small. For this recipe, you really want, if they're large leeks, usually they're kind of double this size. This batch was small. 2 large leeks or 4 small leeks.
Does that equal in onion talk? Would that be?
It's pretty comparable to about the size of an onion, yeah. So I'm gonna just cut off the green tops, and then you'll kind of see here at the bottom is some root. So you just kind of chop off both ends. There's not a whole lot you can really do. They're pretty tough and sandy. But once you get to that point, you've got this left, and that little bit of green is fine. You don't want to go up too much more on that. So the chicken's just about ready. So the leeks, I like to cut them in half, flatten them out so they're not rolling around on me, and then just kind of very thinly slice them. Now because they are grown in that sandy soil, there's often a lot of grit hiding, and you may not really see it. It might not be super apparent, but it's probably there. So the best way to clean leeks would be to get a large pan of water. You could use a really large mixing bowl. This plastic container works really, really well, and fill it generously with water, nice cold water. And what you're going to do is just kind of put the leeks right on top, and they'll float. And then just kind of with your fingers, kind of break up the thick pieces and kind of toss it around in the water. And so what will happen is all that sandy grit will fall right to the bottom, and your nice clean leeks will stay right on the top. So I think it's actually kind of fun. It's kind of interesting at the end. You play in the water, and at the end you get to kind of see the grit that settles to the bottom that doesn't end up in your food, because it's kind of like if you eat a little nut clam that's gritty. It's no fun to be crunching on any grit.
Well, this is interesting. I'm glad I didn't try to do this without watching this.
I said it's kind of a way to have fun with your food. So I'm just going to finish up these guys. And again, they're nice because it's a very light oniony flavor. They wilt down in the pan really nicely, so you're not necessarily kind of crunching on something. If you don't, some people are not a big fan of kind of that crunchy little bit of onion you get in different things. And so leeks are kind of a fun swap out. Kind of a nice thing to try if you've not been very familiar. So yeah, you can hear that grit on my cutting board. So I'm gonna just make sure we get this wiped off so that we're good to go. So, make sure we got everything out of there. And what I'm gonna do is move our chicken over to the baking dish so we can keep going. Save that for later.
Am I supposed to be working here?
Oh, well, yeah, you could start working on your parsley. We're gonna need 2 tablespoons of chopped parsley. So if you wanna kind of separate those leafy, frizzy tops from the stem, and get yourself like a little pile of parsley. 2 tablespoons is what it calls for, but we can kind of eyeball more or less depending on if you're a parsley fan or not. So I'm gonna return the same pan to the stove and just add a little bit more oil back to it. And then kind of use a little bit of that leftover water in here actually to kind of almost deglaze the pan. So we're gonna put our leeks in. And then I will also take your carrots and those can go in.
Okay, but it's taking me a little longer on the parsley than it took you on the leek.
Well, you can go back to the parsley. We won't need the parsley till the
want
end.
carrots?
Yep, carrots can go right in. So yeah, I like to, honestly, you can use a little strainer if you have one to skim across the top and get them out, but you don't want to take this pan, this tub, once you've separated them out and like strain them into a strainer, because then that grit's going to go right back on top. So
Okay.
you kind of want to just fish them out. I'll put this up here because we're done with it. All right, so we're going to get our leeks and our carrots wilting down. Kind of have some of that leftover nice brown chicken in the bottom.
Now, can I take this opportunity as we're dealing with all these beautiful vegetables and talking about food as medicine and vegetables being good for you, just to remind people about the Veggie Van Go that comes to the hospital?
Absolutely. Talk about that program. That's a wonderful local program
It is.
that we have in Rutland County.
So the Vermont Food Bank comes down every 4th Thursday from 9 to 10 to the parking lot in the at the hospital, and distributes fresh, gorgeous fruits and vegetables. Some of them are local, to people who may have some food insecurity or not otherwise be able to access those vegetables. And you don't need to, you just come and we'll help you out filling up a bag, and you leave with a beautiful array of fruits and veggies.
They have I've seen some of the bags coming in, and they have some wonderful produce that they give out every third Thursday of the month?
Every fourth Thursday, 9 to 10 in the morning.
Yeah, well, it's a wonderful program, and I love that they give out ideas kind of
That's
for what
right.
you can do
They do a little
with some
cooking
of the
demo.
produce that
Yeah.
they have. And it's usually fairly seasonal. I think I saw a lot of cabbage and kind of root vegetables in the fall, and apples, and
They all seem to be heavy vegetables because we have to help people carry them back to the
they
car.
are. Yeah, they have.
Not a
I've
lot of
seen some
greens.
big bags coming back. So what I did here while this is sautéing is I took half a cup of flour and 3 cups of low sodium chicken broth, non-fat, low sodium chicken broth. And I'm whisking all this together. And this is going to be kind of our binder that's going to create our sauce.
Okay.
So I know typically when you make any kind of a casserole or a chicken pot pie, you kind of would typically do like a roux where you have flour and usually butter or oil to kind of make your thickening agent. This is kind of a different way of doing it without adding all that extra butter.
Okay.
So we're just going to kind of let that sit for a minute. So those are in a pretty good
That
place.
looks beautiful.
What I'm going to do is deglaze with 1/3 of a cup of white wine.
What is deglaze? You're taking the oil?
So deglazing is a process where you're kind of, I think it's kind of a pretty way to say you're de-sticking kind of anything that's on the bottom. So you'll see we have
Okay.
all that nice chicken flavor that we got when we sauteed the chicken. So it kind of brings all those flavors up from the pan and kind of warps them back into your dish. And you can certainly add a little bit more chicken stock if you need a little bit more here. Because again, I think I just have my pan a little hot, so it's really moving along for us, which is not a bad thing. All right, so we have our leeks, we have our carrots. I'm going to add just a bit of black pepper, just a little pinch of salt, And then I like to add my herbs at this point also. So we're going to add about half a teaspoon of dried ground thyme. And again, I kind of eyeball it. I like a lot of these nice dry kind of poultry type herbs. So I always add a little extra. But start with I would say start with half a teaspoon and kind of see how that is.
What's this one?
This is sage.
Okay.
So we have our ground thyme, our dried ground sage. And then I also even like to add a little bit of ground poultry seasoning because it has a nice blend of other things. It's got marjoram, it has rosemary, as well as probably more thyme and more sage. So that's optional. I like to add it too. So we're going to and that's going to help us build a lot of flavor without adding any extra calories.
It smells wonderful.
It does.
Yeah.
It smells great. So we're going to mix all that. All right. And then we're going to whisk in our flour and chicken stock mixture. Here. And it'll take a couple minutes, probably 5-ish minutes, to kind of start to thicken and get a nice sauce. So that'll kind of start to come together. So we'll let that simmer away. And we can take our chicken and add that back in as well. I like this dish too. There's not a whole lot of dishes to it. We have the one pan to build it all in and then the one pan to finish baking it in. So we'll add our chicken back in. You can see it's already starting to thicken up a little bit for us. And then I'm going to add 1 cup of skim milk. And an additional 1/4 cup of flour.
It's really hearty, even though you're using healthy ingredients. Yeah.
It's a really nice kind of fall winter dish. Really cozy. So you just really want to mix. Take some time, make sure you really mix in any of those flour lumps that you might have as it starts to kind of come back up to temperature here. And what we'll do is we'll add that parsley kind of at the last minute. I've got a cup of frozen peas that have been thawed. We'll kind of just keep building our dish here. And I've got some asparagus. So I think this is really the kind of ingredient that makes this dish really different. If you didn't like asparagus, maybe it wasn't your thing, you could certainly add green beans maybe, really any vegetable you like. But this has a small bunch of asparagus. It's about maybe 5 to 6 stalks, kind of depending on the size and the time of the year. So you can see it's kind of starting to get nice and thick right along the sides. So we want to add the parsley kind of last minute. So we'll hold off on the parsley for a little bit. I'm going to add, lastly, some lemon zest. My microplane. Kind of adds just a little extra. And you know, if you're not a big fan of lemon zest, you certainly don't need to add it.
Oh,
But
it's unexpected
it's
ingredient.
nice
for
and
that, yeah.
fragrant. I don't know if you can smell it just yet, but okay. Let that keep bubbling away. I'm going to make a little space because we're going to be working on our crust in just a few minutes here. Just going to check. I have our kind of our switch out almost ready to go, so I don't want to forget about it here. Okay. So this is really coming along nicely. It's almost there. I don't want to rush it too much because that flour really just kind of needs some time to thicken it, thicken all the way up. And so once this is done, it's going to go in the oven at 400 degrees for half an hour. Would you mind grabbing me the phyllo dough out of the refrigerator? And we'll start kind of working on, yeah, thank you. Have you ever worked with phyllo dough before?
I have, for small things, but never something
Yeah.
as large as this.
Oh, you see it a lot in appetizers, but it makes a really great switch out for kind of the typical heavier crust that you might see with a pot pie. You know, with a chicken pot pie, usually you'll have kind of the crust on the bottom, and then you've got the crust on the top. And this kind of is a nice way to get that that crustiness of a pot pie in a lighter way. So yeah, that's getting just about where we want it. It'll usually start to kind of thicken up more along the sides, so you kind of just keep moving it around. Let your veggies kind of keep cooking. And again, I think you could really kind of tailor this to whatever veggies you have on hand or that you like. Again, green beans, you could do corn, you could absolutely do mushrooms.
The leeks are a little different. I like that.
Yeah, it really is a different kind of a new way to do pot pie. So we'll keep stirring that, almost there. And it will thicken a little more in the oven. So what I'll do is I'll turn that off. We're going to transfer it. Let's see if I can be not super messy with this. Transfer it into our baking dish.
So you're skipping the bottom crust too. That's helpful, yeah.
Yep. So I think once you see this phyllo dough on the one that we have in the oven, you'll see why. I think it's really going to kind of, it'll make up for that lack of crust on the bottom. It's such a nice presentation too. All right, would you sprinkle your parsley right on the top for me? And mix that in. And I'm going to get us ready to go and set up over here with the phyllo dough. So we're going to use about 6 sheets of the phyllo dough. It can be a bit finicky, but don't worry because it is forgiving. You want to make sure it's thawed before you want to start to unroll it. I've made that mistake many times. I try to get a little ahead of myself and I get anxious about it and it'll crack. So you kind of just want to work on a nice clean work surface. And we're looking for the 6 sheets. So you'll take 1 sheet. It's like a nice thin paper. And I have some unsalted butter. Actually, I did a mix. It's unsalted butter and a little bit of olive oil. You could probably use just olive oil if you preferred. But the butter really does kind of help give it a nice flaky golden crust. So what I'm going to do is cover the phyllo dough in a nice light layer of our melted butter.
I can see that would have taken practice. You probably tore a lot. I'm guessing you tore a lot.
Yeah, you got to tear a lot to kind of before you get it right. But the nice thing is we have a whole nice stack here. So if we tear one or really feel like we got to start again, we'll start again. So you want to make sure you really get all the edges, because it does dry out really quickly. So if once it's kind of unrolled like this and exposed to the air, it's going to get dry.
Okay.
So the melted butter and oil is going to help us be nice and golden brown, but also kind of keep it moisturized. So we'll take our baking dish. Nice. And I didn't mention, you could certainly use fresh thyme and fresh sage or rosemary if you like. Certainly if you don't want to use dried, you could definitely use fresh. So what we'll do is just kind of drape our puff pastry right over the top of our casserole dish. This is you're going to want to build this into a 13 by 9-inch pan. See, I ripped it, but it's not a big deal. Get our next layer, and we're going to repeat this 6 times. Bubbles going on.
It's kind of a fancy meal too for when you have
It is
guests.
fancy. Yeah, it has a really nice presentation.
Yeah.
And it feeds a lot. I think that was kind of my other real bonus with this dish is that you could easily, feed 4 to 6 people with this dish. And you can make it ahead. I think, I always like dishes that you can easily make ahead and put in the refrigerator and pull out when you get home from work. If you've got a busy lifestyle and you're always out and about, it's great to come home and just have something you can easily put right in the oven. All right. So I won't bore you with all 6 sheets. I think you get the idea. It'll look like this. And what you'll do is, so you'll see it's kind of draping over the sides. I just kind of take them and neatly fold them right over each other. Just like that. Depending on the size of the puff pastry, the phyllo that you got from the grocery store, they may fit better. These happen to be pretty large phyllo sheets. So that is what it will look like once it's all done. You'll have 6 layers, not 2. But we have one that's done and ready to go. So you can see what it looks like. So again, that's going to be half an hour in the oven at 400 degrees. So I have this one that's been in. And will you see if you might find a serving spoon right underneath where you are?
That one big enough?
Perfect. So
isn't that nice?
that is what
That's
it looks
beautiful.
like when it's done. You can see it's all nice and bubbly
That's
and golden
beautiful.
brown. And if you want to serve up a little bit for us. Yeah, hear that crunch?
Ooh.
See, you don't have to miss all that
No, I don't
heavy,
feel bad about this at all.
heavy crust.
Look at that. Beautiful.
Nice, and that's dinner. Thank you
Perfect.
so much for joining me.
This looks like something I could do.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah? Hopefully you'll
Thanks
get to
for having
try
me.
it.